noch ein junger Mann, was hat weggegeben Tag und Nacht, was nicht geschlafen, nicht gegessen, ist eng gearbeitet in dem, ist der Rav Yudel Krinsky. Jetzt wird sagen, Rav Yudel Krinsky ein paar Wörter to introduce Mr. Lewin.
Thank you, Mayor. Ich werde nach Fiddisch, sehr kurz. Ich habe in meinem Drosche auch gesagt, Dienstag bei Nacht. Es lebe Drosche Casino. Aber ich habe dem Schuss und die Gelegenheit, auf zu vorstellen für euch, der Held von Heinzige Simche, und das ist Mr. Nat Lewin. Wir haben sich getroffen zum ersten Mal mit anderthalb Jahren zurückgelegt, Vater Mischpert. Aber gehört von Nat Lewin. Nat Lewin ist ein Mensch, was schon mal heilig davon auf und gut sein Schuss Atzmei hat Mr. Lewin mehr in sich Schuss stammt von Ehrliche Iden, Rabbonim, Geeinim, ein Einikel von der Reiche Rav, sich rein in der Vracha. Sein Tate gebodelt heim Tev mit Rabbi Yitzchak Levin, aber wusste, prominente idische Asken Ziburi, aber Lipton, soll leben sein gesund bis 120 Jahre. Zu merkwürdig, als suchen sich in den Papieren und zugeräten sich dem Case, hatten gefunden eine Schimme, wo dort nicht gewinn angezeichnet etliche Zendlik nehmen von Iden, was sich gefunden jemals in Japan in den 40er Jahren, und mit sich gedacht von dort eine Rüßrate werden. Jemals gewinn ein Problem mit Immigration, reinkommen in Amerika, gewinn eine Sache schwerer wie Heinz, und gucken sich in die Schimme von nehmen, wo der Friedrich Rebbe hat mich Stadel gewinn, belebe Nefesh, auf eine Rüßrate werden, von jenem Maime de Matev, hat man gefunden den Namen von Rabbi Yitzchak Levin und sein Sohn Reb Nosson. Ich weiß nicht, so nähert gewusst, was sein Kescher zu Lubavitch, als gewinnt als Primisdicke und gab von den jungen Jahren, gewinnt jemals ein kleiner Ingel. Aber Nat Lewin ist ein Lawyer am Fursim in Amerika. Wer es lehnt der Zeitung, wer es hat etwas in Hawaii Delem Hase, weiß, dass da ein Metzies von Nat Lewin. Ist von den samen prominenten Lawyers in Amerika. Was ist von den prominenten Lawyers? Weil ist ein Mutzlich, dicke. Was ist ein Mutzlich? Der junge Mann habe ich gefunden, bei Meschach von dem Jahr, anderthalben Jahr, hat mehr in dicke Kopf. Gedenkt alt. Sie gewinnen Dokumenten, was Poshet, wie sie können gedenkt, Protim, was das so gelehnt, geherrifeien. Und die alle Sachen haben Poshet zugeholfen, zu der Hatzloche und durchstellen dem Case. Gleichzeitig bin ich sicher, als Nat wird sein der Erste, was es Meide sein. Als in der Mahalach Union von dem Case, dem historischen Case, hat man gesehen, Al-Kol Zad v'Zad Yad Hashem. Poshet Nissim und Meiftem Gloyim. Schatz mit sich vernommen mit dem Case hat Chille, man hat gewusst, als die Sache ist, als wie man hat es gesagt. Nach dem hat man mit sich gestellt, Schatz meiste. Aber man darf doch auch für Akkord, Dokumenten, Beweisungen, Evidence, das geht nicht, was man glaubt, was man hat gehört, was man hat gesehen hat, man muss beweisen, Schocher al Gabi Loven. Und man schatz, man hat sich getroffen im ersten Mal da in New York, man hat nicht gehabt, die alle Papieren, was man gedacht. Mit geglebt, der Munnerschleim, als man wird alles gefunden, was man darf. Und kach habe, der Meschach von den Chadoshim, was man hat sich zugegräht zu dem Case, hat man gefunden, Papieren, wenn man sie gedacht hat, man sie gefunden. Mit gedacht haben, dienstige Papier, mit nicht gewusst, wie ein Jahr wie Jezri, ist doch gefunden. Und es ist gewinn, Mammisch, mit jem, mit Schwur. Bis in der letzte Tag von Mischpot hat man gefunden, gar wichtige Papieren, was sie gewinnen als Scheile, zu der Tatsche Keneged, wird es losen annehmen. Hat ein Maßbe gewinnen, bis Mischpot, als mit des Posches, ist gefunden. Und der Schäfer hat gesehen, dass solche wichtige Dokumenten, als es Mekabel gewinnt. Mit Mail hat man gesehen, Al-Kol Zad v'Zad, Nesef, auf dem Derech HaTeva, hat man gesehen, Nissim und Meifsim Gloyim. Gleichzeitig ist es wichtig zu dem Mannen, eine von den Kollegen von Nat Lewin, was hat gearbeitet, ein prominenter Lawyer, was hat gearbeitet in dem Case Beleve Nefesh mit Mesiris Nefesh Mamish und hat das Sach zugegeben zu der Hatzloches Adover hat gesollt sein Hein bei Nacht leider, nicht gekannt sein mit der Sibit, gedarf sein Gott mit Chutzloer, ist von Philadelphia. Ist das der Jerry, Rabbi Yosef Shestak. Ich will ihm der Bahnen Lateva, weil sein Messir und Sinn in dem ganzen Case bemerkt als Mann, ich gewinne sehr, sehr wichtige und zugeholfen in der Sachprotein, was mit vorausgesehen, man hat nicht vorausgesehen, aber als wir in dem Atelier gewinnen. Es gibt seine spezielle Beteiligung, Input zu dem Minion, hat man Atelier gewinnen in der Sache in Jönen. Begonnen, ich will noch sagen, als Nat Lewin, was ich getroffen mit anderthalb Jahr zurück, ist nicht derselbe Nat Lewin. Es ist ein anderer Nat Lewin. Der Nat Lewin, was mit bald Herren von ihm, ist das ein Nat Lewin, der Reb Nosson Lewin, was wird verschrieben werden, Ladeiris, gezwungen Ladeiris, in der Historie von Lubavitch, als der Held von der Helden in dem ganzen Case, was er auch gekostet wird, für die geht, mehr in die Gagmas Nefesh, a dank dem Eibischten, beschäftigt war dort dem Eibischten, als man hat Maslier gewöhnt, der da Notzach, und der Eibischte auch geben, als in allen Jahren, was man vernimmt, auch wie der Rebbe gesagt, ja, hachtzidem al-hol jeno, beteva nire wa hanigle. Net.
Ich danke auf Krinsky für die Werte, was hat gesagt, aber ich will reden in Englisch. Ich hoffe, dass ihr versteht. Viele die Gäste von Eretz Israel, הייתי רוצה אולי לדבר עברית, אבל אשתדל לדבר אנגלית. I think every other lawyer in the United States has envied me for the last 2 days. Lawyers have told me that when they win a case, their clients are sometimes so grateful that they give them more money, that they give them lots of more thanks, that they invite them to their house. But there's no lawyer in the United States whose victory in court has been met by 3 days and, Yirtzeh Hashem, more of nights, days and nights of dancing and singing and joy in the streets. So I'm the most grateful lawyer in the United States. You know, usually they say that people don't have kind things to say about lawyers. They say, I have agreement there. You know, there's the famous story of the doctor and the engineer and the lawyer who are, we're in Bracious now, so safer Bracious, so I can tell the story. The doctor and the engineer and the lawyer who are arguing about which profession came first. And the engineer said, I came first, because Noach built a teva. Noah built an ark. And how could he have built an ark without an engineer? And the doctor said, no, I came first, because the Rabbanu Shalom made Chava from Adam Harishon. So there must have been a doctor to take care of the post-operative period. And the lawyer said, no, you're all wrong. I came first. Just look in the second pasuk in Bracious. V'haaretz haysa tohu v'vohu. Who can create tohu v'vohu other than the lawyers? This is one case where what came was not tohu vavohu, but clarity, and that's because this is one of the cases where the lawyer knew from the beginning, and I think everybody should have known from the beginning, that as lawyers like to say, the cause was just. And I should always have the mazel to have only clients, and I think all my clients are just, but only clients whose causes are just. But it was an unusual case for me in many ways. There is no other case I have ever had who the first time where Reb Karinsky came to my office, he came carrying a page from the Shulchan Aruch. The first meeting, to tell me and to make sure that I was satisfied that going to court was the right thing to do. Never have I had a client who's come to me at the very first meeting carrying a Xerox page from the Shulchan Aruch and saying, here is why we're going to court. Never have I had a case in which I had people supporting me during the case, like Reb Karinsky, Reb Shem Tov, Reb Shalom Ber Levine, Rabbi Wilhelm, all the people who helped me day in and day out to get the documents, to find the papers, to find the evidence, to explain the case to me, which a lawyer always needs. Never, ever have I had a case in which there was so much interest in what was going on in the trial that there were people lining up outside the courtroom and sat through hours. Lawyers know that trials are often boring, that what happens is they run up to the judge's desk and talk up to the judge up there and say things that ordinary people can't understand, but there was such attention, such complete dedication by every one of you who was at that courtroom that the judge was impressed. Don't think that you didn't play an important part in this case, because every day when you came to that courtroom, and there were, I see in the audience, people who I remember were in the courtroom, you impressed the judge, you helped the lawyers, and you helped the case. Never, ever during a trial have I had such fantastic limousine service as I had during this trial. Going down the Grand Central Parkway at 110 miles an hour to catch the last shuttle to Washington. Never, ever in a trial have I had such marvelous catering service. There was a judge in the next chamber who luckily decided he would take a vacation around the time of the trial. So we used his chamber often to put out a nice lunch for all the people on the defense team, of course, kosher or not kosher, but everybody. But it was the best fed trial I have ever had during all my years of practicing law. Never, ever have I had a trial when I've been able to have a minyan for mincha during the trial. I had it during this trial. The fact is that the case was, as Rabbi Karinsky has said, Yad Hashem was in it at every step. And I felt it, and the other lawyers on our side felt it. Another lawyer whose name has not been mentioned this evening, who worked with me day in and day out, and who would have been here except he's in a trial in Cincinnati, is Seth Waxman of my office. And I can tell you that the word of the result in the case went so fast that I got a call from Seth Waxman from Cincinnati Tuesday afternoon. He had already heard it from somebody, I think, in California or in Massachusetts. Let me tell you just for a minute, because I know you'd be interested in knowing that the opinion that the judge issued in the case, and a very large part of it, really focused on the principal point that the Rebbe had talked about with the lawyers at the meetings that we had the schus to have with him. He, from the very beginning, pointed out that the letter to Dr. Marx, which had been written by the Frierdiker Rebbe, was the key to the entire case and really showed what the intention was. And if you look at the book that I think is being printed up, you'll see that the judge quotes the entire letter and goes on with language in the opinion which points up precisely the respect and the awe that the fact that that letter had been written by the former Rebbe deserved. The judge says that the letter, it does not make much sense that a man of the character of the sixth Rebbe would, in the circumstances, mean something different than what he says, that the library was to be delivered to plaintiff for the benefit of the community. And that's exactly what the Rebbe said to Jerry Shestak and myself at the very first meeting that we had to him about this. He said, if that's what the Rebbe said in the letter, of course, that's what it must have meant, that the community had it. And that's precisely the opinion and the point that the judge relied on in his opinion, and that is quoted at length. We have gone through really many months, unfortunately, as has been said here from this podium of Agmas Nefesh, of the judge really not issuing his decision. But when he finally issued it this week, there was almost a clue in the judge's name that we could not have expected it before now. And if I sat back and thought about it, it struck me that it's a very funny remez out of the name. His name is Sifton, Samach Yud Pei Tes Vav Nun. Think about that, Samach Yud Pei Tes Vav Nun. What does it give you? It gives you Yosef and Nun Tes. Yosef and 59. Yosef was 17 2 weeks ago in Vayeshev. He was 30, 39 in Miketz. You could not have expected Yosef Nun Tes to come down and to be resolved before this week, maybe even next week, really, if you're trying to figure it out in Vayechi, but certainly not before Vayigash. So there you have a clue in the Sedra itself that Sifton would have had to have decided it now. Rav Karinsky has given you a little bit of the yichus that I'm very proud of. Let me say, before I even go any further, he talked about the fact that I have relations back to Lubavitch from the time certainly we were in Europe, and there were efforts being made to rescue us from Europe, and I did receive the note, the efforts that were being made with the State Department to rescue my father, Shlita, and myself, and my mother, Alei Shalom, from the Holocaust of Europe. I have another connection to Lubavitch, which my wife reminds me of frequently, which is that it was at a Simchas Torah 27, 28 years ago that she met in front of this building the man who ultimately really became our Shadchan, and who suggested to me that I be in touch with her. So I owe to Lubavitch not merely my being rescued from or efforts made to bring us out of Europe, but also my wife and my family, of whom I am very, very proud. And my brother-in-law is right up here too. So but I was saying, since you were told about my yichus, there's as I say, that little clue about the Sedra, but the Sedra really gives you a lot more. Even if you look at the beginning of the Sedra, Vayigash Elav Yehuda, Yehuda goes to Yosef, who he thinks is an Egyptian prince, and pleads with him for justice. And really, that's what was happening in terms of this case. We were going before a Charles Sifton, who is the son-in-law, former wife, was daughter of Reinhold Niebuhr. I mean, a thorough Gentile who listened with respect during the entire trial because he knew that the trial deserved respect. I really thought that the trial was brought out in Sifton great respect for Lubavitch, for Orthodox Jewry, for the entire Jewish world, because he saw that right and justice were being presented to him. The comparisons to Yosef and the whole situation are so many, really. We could spend much time here this evening speaking about it. Even the notion of I went through this trial where so much of the trial was in Yiddish and was in Hebrew, and there were interpreters and interpretations. I went through this trial twice. I heard it in Yiddish, and I heard it in Hebrew, and I can understand Yiddish and Hebrew, and I heard it again in English through the interpreters. And that, they explain, is, of course, what happened to Yosef. Yosef Melitz had Melitz Beinosam, with the interpreter between him and his brothers, heard everything twice, which is an explanation as to why, to those of you who recall it, why 10 years was taken off his life, even though it was only 5 times that the brothers talked about Avinu or Avdecha Avinu, because he heard it twice, because he heard it through the interpreter. So this Sedra really was a suitable one. With all the time that it has taken, with all the length of time that this decision took, it ended up being, I think, the right time for a decision of this kind. It is, in the words of the song that that's been made for the occasion, דידן Notzach. It's a substantial victory. It's a great victory, and I am honored, really, to have been a part of it, and I certainly hope and wish to all of you and to all of Yisrael just happiness, simcha, and shalom ad bias HaMashiach. Amen.
I want to say one word if it's all right. Can I have your attention for one moment? I just want to say one word. Nat mentioned his wife, who happens to be here tonight in the Ezrat Noshim. And I want to remind him of something I heard during the trial, and when you mentioned that she used to come to 770, is Megevoren Recht der Zach. There was one Friday that papers had to be delivered to court from Washington, to the court in Brooklyn, the federal court. And usually, to deliver these papers, you can take anybody, put them on a plane, or send it Federal Express. If it has to get to the next day, if it's the same day, you put somebody in the plane, you send a messenger. The Rebbe told me to ask Nat to deliver the papers himself. Now, this was a Friday afternoon. Time was short. And I think he had second thoughts. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Maybe I won't come back in time. And I think it was Ricky who said, if the Rebbe wants you to go, of course you'll come back on time. In Kach Have.